Hey everybody, just wanted to take a few minutes to talk about a couple more ESL strategies and really just language strategies in general that we could use in the classroom to help students learn or remember vocabulary or have some good surface memory learning going on for kids. And these two strategies are going to be TPR and mnemonic devices. And I'd say, what is TPR? Well, TPR is an acronym for total physical response. So, all total physical response is putting some actions to words. It can be used for vocabulary, and it can be used for ideas in class. So, teaching the really little ones like I didn't like yelling across the room because that could be intimidating, or kids could get kind of scared with that. So, in order to keep that relationship, but still get my point across, I used hand signals. So, instead of yelling at a kid to stop doing something, I might say their name and tell them, stop. Or if they needed to go to the restroom, right, they might give me their hand signal or whatever I had for that, and I would say yes. Or the other one that I like to use was sit. Please sit. So I'd say this out loud. I'd say, please sit when I was teaching it. And then kids eventually picked up on the idea. So, sure, I'd start out with like an explicit lesson. For us, this means stop. This means yes. This means sit. But then over time, I'd continue to introduce that. So and so, please sit. So that way, when I saw them at an assembly or in the cafeteria and I went like this, they knew they needed to sit, right? Now, hopefully, what you take from this video is that everything we do is for a purpose, on purpose, right? So I talk to my kids about the concept of on purpose. And so now every time I talk about something being on purpose, literally, even with adults, I do this when I say purpose. But it just becomes part of your everyday vocabulary, something that you do all the time. And typically, when people really explicitly use total physical response in their classrooms, it's not necessarily I creating those hand signals or whatever signal you want to use. Sometimes it's the kids, but it doesn't have to just be for vocabulary words. So when I talk the concept of fractions, did you catch that? Fractions. Numerator is the number on top. Denominator is the number on the bottom. Why do I do this and this? Quite simple. Because when you're trying to figure out what a fraction represents, the numerator is what you're looking for, that numerator, out of your whole denominator. Fractions. It's just putting action to words, right? It could also be in math. You could talk about joining instead of adding or separating. And even like in science, right? We talk about magnetism, opposites attract, same ones separate, push each other apart, sorry. So those are just a few ways that you can introduce total physical response. People use it for all kinds of things. You can just look up total physical response online, and there's just a ton of different types of hand motions, or even ways that you can use it. You can use it for instructional purposes. You can use it for educational purposes. But certainly you can look that up. And what the great thing is, you need no technology for it. So there's no PowerPoint that goes with it. There's no lesson. You do it. And as you speak, you remember to use those hand signals, and kids just pick up on it. And it's great because then they have an actual signal to remind themselves, oh, that's what that means. All right, so the next one we're going to talk about is mnemonic devices, and they do kind of go hand in hand, really, because mnemonic devices, as we all know, are just ways to remember things, right? That's that very surface level memorization. But the reality is that if you don't have that memorization, you can't get to that deep learning or that transfer learning. So relatively common ones. My very excellent mother just served us 9 pizzas. I didn't know this one until I was an adult. But an easy way for kids to remember the planets that are on science tests. Another one, King Philip came over for great spaghetti, right? Again, science folks, you would know exactly what to do with this. But it's surface level remembering for students who may or may not have the language or the background knowledge to be able to pull this out. I like this one. Raven. Remember, affect is a verb and effect is a noun. I get this one wrong as an adult. This is fantastic. But my absolute favorite one that I found is, are you stressed? When you're stressed, don't you eat desserts? And of course, spelled backwards. It's just a way to remember desserts versus desert. Um, so these are just different mnemonic devices, right? Ways to remember months of the year, right? January has 31, February has less than 31, March has 31, April has less than 31, and you can go across January, February, March, April, May, June, July, and August are the two that have 31. And continue on, right? Just these ways that we remember things as adults, we can pass that on to kids so they can have, again, that surface level thinking. All right, so how does this help with language? Remember, we are all programmed to learn language. It's just how we go about doing it, right? We all have neurons and dendrites and various other brain cells in our body that we need, in our brain, I'm sorry, that we need to use to learn language, and eventually we create those neural pathways that become so ingrained in our brain that they don't go away, hopefully, as long as you continue using it. Now, sometimes you got to remember, kids will forget. Just as adults, we forget. As a second language learner myself, right, the second language that I learned was Spanish. There's times that if I don't use it, I lose it. But it just takes me a little bit, kind of like riding a bike, and you remember, oh yeah, that's the word that I'm looking for, or whatnot. So anyhow, I really hope that this has helped. Again, two very easy, non-technology based strategies that we can use for ESL students, or any student learning for that matter, whether they be remote or on campus. No PowerPoint, no learning system needed, just yourself. I hope this helps a little, and I hope you have a great day.